Not today, James. Not today. Maybe Monday. I'll grant you Monday. Not today. Not today. Got to keep you on your toes. And speaking of keeping you on your toes, where do we start this evening, man? We got recruiting, we got transfer portal, we got spring games, we got boxing, we got UFC. I know we're probably not going to talk about the last two things, but in a perfect world, in my imagination, we would. But as always, guys, y'all know the drill. Jay, Jance, tell the people where they can find all your great content. We'll just go straight down the line and then we'll hop right into this.
Well, you know where to find me, Jay Unfair Sports. Search me on YouTube as well as wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to. Thanks, Todd, for having me as usual.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you guys can find me at Jant Sports on YouTube. You can also find me at Jant716 on Twitter. If you guys want to get at me, talk football, boxing, I know we can definitely do that because I definitely know that the Ryan Garcia Tank fight is going to be spectacular. I cannot wait to watch that fight. So if you guys want to do that, definitely hit me up. But yeah, for the most part, yes, we can find me as.
Yeah, and guys, I've thought a lot today, in preparation for the stream and what little preparation we do for these streams, what we would start on, right? What's the right thing? Because we have spring games to preview, all of this, but with as many commitments flying off the handle, I think that's only the right place to start. Oklahoma gets a 3-star lineman who, every so often you see a 3 or 4-star guy and you start checking the film and you're like, I bet that's not going to be a 3 or 4-star guy for long. Like that guy's going to move up. I think Isaiah Autry is a guy that'll move up. I'll let Jay kind of take it when we get to that point, but look at the offer list for him. That's one of the first things you can tell. Either you got a gem, a diamond in the rough, or the guy just hasn't risen up the rankings yet. In the case of Autry, you look at the offer list, and I mean, it's every major institution is after him. That should tell you all you need to know right there. Great addition for the Oklahoma Sooners, picking up that offensive lineman. You look at Alabama. They pick up a 4-star outside linebacker, inside linebacker, wherever he ends up. That's anybody's decision. Caden Jones. I'm really excited about this addition. I talked about it earlier, Jay. I don't know if you've gotten the opportunity to watch any of his film, but he's a 6'4", 24/7 Sports lists him at 205 pounds. I've seen 225 pounds elsewhere. So he's anywhere between that. He's returning kicks. He's out in space. Bro, I have seen very few 6'4" linebackers who, whenever you turn on their film, the first few plays are them out in space covering. And I saw that and I was like, I didn't make it through his highlight tape. I pulled a Coach Hayes. I saw one big hit and said, all right, I'm done. I've seen all I need to see. This is a dude. And then we need to talk about Arkansas. Guys, Arkansas, 3 commitments today. Charleston Collins keeping a top 3 player in-state home, Jaden Allen and Courtney Crutchfield. So recruiting, I mean, it's as big time as it gets right now. Jay, talk to us about the addition Oklahoma got in Autry today.
So looking at Isaiah Autry out of Fulton, Mississippi, he's a Mississippi player. And just like you mentioned, Ty, just about every major institution wanted him, even listed as a 3-star. And remember, classes are filled in with 3s, 4s, and 5s. Some players will rise, others will drop. It just depends on, that's how the cycle's always gone when it comes to rankings and recruitings. But watching his film and watching the way he moves, I mean, at his size, he's pretty darn athletic for to be like 6'7", 280 pounds. So it tells me that there's a lot of potential there. There's a lot of things that you can do to shape him into the player that you need long term. Also, he's the second cousin of former OU running back Marcus Dupree.
Yeah.
So he's got ties to Oklahoma. His mom played basketball for Pat Summitt at Tennessee. So comes from a home of athletes, right? From 93 to like 97 when I was digging on him, I'm like, wow, athletes. So, he's got that athleticism, comes with the genes, and he can play. So the biggest thing with him, though, is he's another one of those players that Beatonbow goes after. He finds those big, strong, athletic guys that he's going to make and mold into potential first day to second day draft picks with ease. And so with Beatonbow being here, and that was one thing that Isaiah had mentioned in the article that I read, what he liked about Oklahoma the most is that Bill Beatonbow's been there 11 years. And so he has a long track record of sending players to the NFL and ones that were not highly touted as well as players that were highly touted and may not have done well in the combine and are getting max deals as tackles. So you can tell the development is there, and he recognized that and said, he's going to make me go to the NFL. So I want to be there for that. And so I'm excited that we're getting that. That's the first one I believe is going to come before spring game. I sense more will come down the line as the visitor list is huge. Just as we were talking about in the green room, I need to finish a video on that. It's just it's been an exhausting week, but there's a lot of players to look out for more commits. So I'm stoked about Autry, Isaiah Autry, as well as just what else is coming down the line for the Sooners.
And it's not just him. I mean, you look, Oklahoma received a crystal ball for a few other players, and talking about recruiting, a crystal ball for a wide receiver out the transfer portal. And Jay, this is an area I've expressed, I don't want to say concern, right? Because concern is a strong word. But if there was an area where you asked me, Ty, on offense, where are you watching for OU in this spring game? For me, it would be wide receiver. And I know every time I say that, people are like, oh, but there are guys in the room. And that much I don't dispute, right? Nick Anderson has got great upside. Jaden Gibson has got great upside. I mean, Jay, how many times have I talked to you about Petaway's upside? He's not even there yet. He's going to be a difference maker. The simple fact of the matter is this: you lose 50% production in yards and 64% production in receptions. That's a tall task to try and go over. Luckily, you have a Farouk, you have a Drake Stoops. And I think a key piece that y'all get in this that I don't think it's talked about enough is tight end Austin Stogner, especially for what you lost in the wide receiver room. I think that's an unbelievably key piece. But it's interesting that even outside of the commitment you get a crystal ball for another wide receiver, Kearney. You get a crystal ball for Brennan Thompson. That's what I found notable. Jance, I'm interested in hearing both your take on Oklahoma's recruiting right now, because it seems like Brent Venables, anytime we see these massive events, I mean, feedback is through the roof, which coming from Clemson is to be expected. Not only that, but talk to me about Alabama's addition today, Caden Jones, because I am bullish, Jance, on this right here. That guy's going to fly up the recruiting board. That guy is going to fly up this recruiting board. We're going to revisit this conversation in December. Talk to me.
Well, as far as like Oklahoma recruiting goes, I mean, I think we all know for the most part how things are, pretty much going for Oklahoma right now. I think you made an excellent point with the receiving position. That's one of the kind of the key areas that they definitely need to focus on a little bit, trying to develop and get more skill position players that they can try to get for the future. Obviously the quarterback situation with the whole, Jackson Arnold and whatever the business is going over there. Of course, you got to get more weapons, whether if you have to look at the transfer portal and whether if you have to look at, actual recruiting itself, you need to get those skill positions developed really right there. For the most part, the last two recruiting cycles, including this one, the trenches are going to be a key area. We all know this. It's Brent Venables. It's his specialty. Trying to get those linebackers, trying to get those defensive linemen, get those freak athletes that you can mix in there and get those hybrids. But the offensive side of the ball definitely needs to be a little bit more of a priority, I think, for them for this year, which I think they definitely are going to be focusing on a little bit now. So definitely, I think Oklahoma is going to trend up. I mean, again, we look at their 2020. We look at their 2020. The last recruiting class, they finished fourth. We always talk about this. They finished fourth recruiting with a bad record. You can only imagine that all of a sudden now, if Oklahoma continues to improve and showcase that they can develop, that they can get on the right path, what the recruiting classes can look like in the future. But there's no question in my doubt that Oklahoma is definitely going to get better. They're definitely going to show some massive improvement really, really soon. As far as Alabama goes, my God, they got a freak athlete. They got a freak. Yeah, they got a freak athlete. 6'4", like I said, 210 pounds, maybe 6'3.5". We all know how they like to exaggerate it, but still, you get a freak athlete, a guy that definitely can fill out his frame. Probably can be around 225, maybe 230 by the time he leaves college. But a guy that for the most part can do everything for you. And again, the level of high school, again, it's high school film, so sometimes it could be, we could be a little bit, hasty a little bit about it as far as the film, because, it's not like he's playing at Mater Dei or St. John Bosco. And even then, you look at those kids, it's kind of like there's only so much you can do as far as competition, as far as that translation. But still, I mean, to get these freak athletes for the foundation that I think Alabama is building upon, and for the staff that Alabama has right now, this could be a very positive sign for the University of Alabama to get a freak kid. Maybe doesn't particularly fit the system, but a guy that you can get there, that you can get him to learn. You can get him to learn. Great leadership on your roster, great coaching. All again, you turn a kid like that, if you can coach him up properly, that's one of those kids that can be an absolute freak, right? You look at the just the recent players, like you look at the Isaiah Simmons of the world, you look at those type of caliber players, the Trent Simpsons, those hybrid type players. Maybe this could be a kid that could develop into one of those freak athletes that we could see. But I'm definitely excited for this. Of course, we all know. I mean, linebacking, it's kind of, I'm not gonna say weird, but it's actually kind of exciting to think about, because Alabama has, when we're taking a look at the freaks, we all know Alabama has theirs, but the most freakish room, if we're just talking about position, is that linebacking room. It's that inside linebacking room, which is something that we've honestly lacked for the last 4 to 5 years, was finding those guys. Well, now Alabama has a crap ton of them. So I'm excited to see another addition. I've seen some projections that maybe you can slide him out. I've seen some projections.
I think he fits perfectly for Alabama's scheme as a jack.
Yeah.
That's where the upside to me is crazy there.
Yeah. So exactly. I've seen some of them say that he could be maybe a sandbacker, maybe a jack, like you just said, but it's going to be interesting to see what he does. But no, I'm overall excited for this commitment, and hopefully he can stick with us.
Yeah, I think this is a big commitment. Puts Alabama at number 15 in the nation per 24/7 Sports. 6 commitments and an average recruit rank of, I didn't check it, but I know it's very high. Last time I checked, Bama was like at a 95 average recruit rank, which is just crazy right now. Long ways to go, but that is Bama. Jay, go on 24/7 Sports, man. Go to Caden Jones' profile and check out his huddle video, and yeah, you'll see why.
I was just looking at it, and first off, somebody made the joke that you guys got your version of Spencer Rattler, which made me fall out of my chair.
Yeah, someone commented and said Alabama got Ice Spice, and I was like, I almost blocked them right then and there when they.
Yeah, that's almost block worthy, but that's very well played, my friend. Very well played. But no, watching him, I was just looking at a little bit of his film and watching him in Space Jam. No, that's a special athlete, and you can tell that Nick Saban, and staff always does a very good job of finding freakish athletes like that. And now we'll get to see him have another knife in his toolbox. Yay! Give that man a knife, and he's gonna do more things. It's ridiculous.
They said something that he I don't know if he had an Oklahoma offer or not. I believe I saw he had an Oklahoma offer, but when you watch him play, this is the type of guy that you see Brent Venables' cheetah written all over.
Yeah.
You see
those hybrid players, man.
He ran a 4.640 at 6'4", 220. He is in space, guys, like doing things that you don't typically see linebackers do, and that gets you fired up, right?
That's stuff you can't teach.
That's why
you can't teach at that part. Yeah,
he's a perfect fit for the jack linebacker position at Alabama. Now, before we talk Arkansas recruiting, PG coming in here. PG, talk to us first and foremost. OU, a lot of excitement recruiting this weekend. We haven't touched the spring game yet. We're going to do that just a bit. But y'all pick up a big-time commitment today from a guy who I think every one of us here agree he's going to rise. Where he ends up on the 24/7 Sports ranking is anybody's guess. I'd bet some good money he's not going to be where he currently is. Talk to us first and foremost about Autry, and then talk to us about some of the visitors Oklahoma has this weekend and what people need to look forward to in terms of Oklahoma recruiting.
Yeah, well, if you jump into my Twitter comments, people will tell you that it's not, I guess, a big commitment because he's a 3-star. I don't know why Oklahoma fans are just so obsessed with 5-star and high 4-star guys when you have guys that could really develop talent, which is what Autry has. And if you look at his offer list, I mean, it consisted of almost all big time schools.
Yes, look at the offer list.
Smaller offers. I'm like, stars are great, but look at the offers. Who wants that person? And Nick Saban wants him, so that's good enough for me. But
I think he had an offer from almost every major Power 5 in the South.
Georgia offered him, Florida offered him,
Alabama, Auburn, everybody, yeah. Mississippi, Ole Miss, yeah, everyone. You name it.
Yeah, it's kind of like everybody, Davis. Man. I mean, Weston Davis is starting to climb through the rankings. He was, I think, unranked at one point, and now he's getting all these offers and he's climbing up. So fans will tell you it's not a big take. The 3-star. I personally think it's different because when you look at what he's able to do on the field with his hands and his footwork, that's the key. Because when you go to the SEC and you're having to go up against those big defensive linemen, those strong defensive linemen, you need guys like that. So I really like his flexibility, like in his knees. That's something I've been trying to watch for more on the offensive linemen, because talking to these guys now, I guess I know what to look for when it comes to.
That's exactly it, man. That's exactly it. You need to look for the bend, you need to look for the footwork, and you need to look at hand placement. If everything is movement, if everything moves all fluidly in one, that's a dude. That's a dude. And Autry's got good mechanics now.
And it seems like that's what Oklahoma's trying to do on the offensive line. They're not trying to go after obviously they're going to throw those offers out there and they'll try to get them on campus, but they're really trying to go after those diamonds in the rough, like Logan Howland last season, who went from tight end to playing left tackle in just a senior season, rose as high as he did. I think it was the 4-star status, if I'm correct. So, and the sky is the limit for a kid like that. So it seems like Oklahoma on the offensive line is really just going for those hidden gems, the diamonds in the rough that a lot of people are overlooking because, the 5-stars are great. But as we saw with Jay, who was the 5-star offensive lineman that we had that just didn't work out? Wasn't he from Midwest City? I'm trying to think of his name.
Oh yeah, he recently transferred.
Yeah,
I think I know the name, but I don't want to say it because I think I'm wrong.
Who is it?
Savion Bird? Is it Savion Bird?
No, Savion's still there. But
here.
You're close. Let me look. I'll look it up and continue.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the 5-stars sometimes don't always work out. Stars don't always translate to the field. So that's my thing. Oklahoma's done a really good job at developing, and I'm excited for it. But in terms of the visitor list this weekend, OU's potentially looking at 3 or 4 commits. We've already got one of them down, so maybe 2 to 3 more. I'm excited for those to pop off. We've talked about those behind the scenes a little bit, but
just big time.
Oh, yeah, and then looking at the 5-stars that are going to be on campus, and Bryant Wesco, David Stone, and one that I think is pretty big for Oklahoma to be getting a visit on the same week that LSU's got a spring game is Dominic McKinley out of Lafayette, Louisiana, because, I'm just in the opinion, if you're having to go recruit somebody in Louisiana, you're probably already at a disadvantage to LSU there because
and that's a fair thought.
That's a fair assessment.
That's gonna be a toughie, man.
Yeah,
it's always tough.
Hey, you know what? You've got him on your campus during your spring game and not LSU's. So
good point.
Bray Walker,
that's who it was.
Out of Westmore, 6'7", 359, 5-star, top 30 player in the country. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, offensive line is a very difficult position to gauge because I've said this before. Imagine you're a 5-star offensive tackle, okay? Now imagine your film is filled with blocking guys like me at edge, someone who weighs on a soaking wet day 180 pounds. You might throw me around the club, but that's not indicative as to how good you are, right? Because then you line up next to Keon Keeley. Are you a 5-star when you line up next to Keon Keeley? I don't know. But just because you dominated someone who's 100 pounds less than you does not mean you're going to walk into college and do this. You guys, we got to remember, college is full of dudes. There's no baseline in high school football. They might allow me to walk on that football field, and that's dangerous, right? In college, there's a baseline. That's the difference here. And offensive line is a very difficult position, but PG, to your point, you have one of the best offensive line coaches in the nation. I mean, whenever we're talking Bedenbaugh, if we're not talking Bedenbaugh, I really like Wolford. He just hasn't done it as long as Bill Bedenbaugh. Let's be very honest here. I love Wolford, love the tenacity. Bedenbaugh's got a long time where he's done the exact same thing.
Well, he has 2 of the highest paid offensive linemen in NFL history, and he's about to get a 3rd with Creed Humphrey.
The receipts are there. It's been so long. It's not like it's a one-off. You know what I mean? Like this is Jay, what is this? 8 years, 9 years, 10 years in the making?
Yeah.
Right. So if we're not talking Bedenbaugh, we're talking Moore at Michigan. We're talking Iowa's offensive line coach. And hey, I know this is going to hurt both of y'all, But Kyle Flood is a hell of an offensive line coach down there in Texas.
I think he's a good offensive line coach, but I think Kyle Flood is a really good recruiter.
He's a great. You're not wrong there. He is a fantastic recruiter, and he's a really good offensive line coach. But that's why you always feel good about your offensive line. And I love your point, PG. How many 3-stars are there every year? Now, do you think it's a possibility that a lot of those guys are capable at playing at an analogous level to the 5-stars? Yeah. There's just only 32 5-stars every year.
Well, and the thing is, there's really not a lot of offensive. I think last year was, the first year I've seen a lot of offensive linemen in 5-star territory. Like, there's offensive linemen, I don't really feel like they're hard, like you said, to assess. Like, I think you're not always going to have a ton of 5-star offensive linemen. I think they're going to hang more in the mid 4-star to low 3-star territory just because they're not the sexiest position to evaluate, because they're not, outside of blocking, they're not making plays. So
no, and at the end of the day, if your offensive line coach has factors that he likes and he can identify them and go get those guys, that's what matters. And that's
really
exactly
what it is. That's really what it is.
It's exactly what it is. Now, before we move on to actually talking about some of these spring games, guys, I did want to just give a quick shout out. Arkansas is on fire right now on the trail. 3 commitments today. Charleston Collins, the number 2 player in the state of Arkansas, top 30 defensive lineman, top 300 prospect in the nation. That's a big time get now. And Jaden Allen, cornerback out the state of Texas, plays for Aledo, plus the third one coming in, Courtney Crutchfield. I have not hid my excitement for Arkansas and my hope that they're able to get things together and move in a positive direction, but this is a big year for the Arkansas Razorbacks, and we're going to have to revisit this conversation. F is for Fanatics, guys. As always, he does great content. We're going to have to get him back on the show because we need to talk about some SEC football. I want to talk with y'all about your Florida Gators, and you and I need to discuss some Arkansas. Jay, I'd love to have you on. We need to discuss some Tennessee, and God's mercy, there's so much in the SEC for us to get into. Before we hit up some spring games, I'll hit up some of these comments real quick. Playboy says, what is it with the USC hype? They were 2 games off from playoffs. Right.
And if you're a defensive player, you can just go there immediately and play.
Plug and play. That's very true. Look, will they make the playoffs? And if they make the playoffs, will they win a playoff game? That is a conversation to have. And look, I think there's not a UFC fan out there that wouldn't agree that the defense has to improve. But if we're asking why there's the hype, man, it's just because they went from 4-8 to being 2 games off of playoffs.
I mean, the other thing to consider here too is the fact they had the Heisman Trophy winner.
True.
So you know that they have the offense. If Lincoln Riley ever puts together a defense,
my God,
he'd be unstoppable.
My God,
he'd be borderline unstoppable. They don't even need it to be top 10 defenses. If they could ever have a top 40 defense on a consistent basis, right? Warm bodies, that team, they would be ridiculous. So that's where the hype comes in. Lincoln does everything right on one side of the ball, and for some reason, they just never figure it out on the other. He always has a quarterback that's a game changer, that's basically a world beater by themselves, hence him having 3 Heisman Trophy winners and 1 that ended up in second place after he transferred. You've got everything there. That's where the hype is. That's exactly where it's at. You need a defense that's top 40. I promise you, they would be almost unstoppable.
If USC lands Bear Alexander, hot take, I think they go to the playoffs and they're undefeated. Because if you got a healthy Damani Jackson, a healthy Kavonta Henry, you add Bear Alexander to that defense.
What about their edge rushers?
I don't see
because they I mean that's a big downgrade, man. First Drake Jackson, and then you lose Tulu. I mean that's
Tulu. That's a big loss. Is Tulu? That's a big loss. I think they got Braylon Shelby, but then you're asking a lot of a true freshman to come in there, and I love his film.
What position are you talking about for
the edge that USC lost?
They got Kavonta Henry too.
Kavonta Henry's a great addition.
No, who am I thinking of?
Kavonta Henry's still in the portal. He hasn't gone anywhere.
I'm thinking of the 5-star. What's his name? The 5. He was.
Oh, you're thinking of Corey Foreman, right?
Corey Foreman. That's who it is. I don't know why I was thinking about Kavonta Henry. He was.
They also got what's that kid's name from A&M?
Anthony Lucas.
Yeah, we got Mason Cobb in the portal, the linebacker from.
Yeah, they've done some good additions on the defensive side.
I'm gonna say this: we've seen a Lincoln Riley team accumulate actually good defensive talent, but the scheme never works. Because remember, Oklahoma's had some defensive linemen drafted from Alex Grinch's staff, Alex Grinch's recruiting. We've seen defensive linemen drafted from that team. The problem is going to be, can they schematically make it work?
See, I think they can because Grinch is from the Pac-12, where his defense looked really good while he was at Washington State. So I'm just thinking, I'm thinking they're going to look better this next year than what they really are, just because they're in the Pac-12.
I think that's fair. And look, this is a big year for Alex Grinch. There's no hiding behind it anymore, right? Because your offense is super powered. They got dudes for days that can make plays on that offense. Raleek Brown, Branch, that kid is going to wreak havoc in the Pac-12.
Mario Williams, I mean,
what's your defense going to do?
But between Williams and Branch, I mean, they've got a lot of speed.
Yeah, it's all about that defense. If they don't get it done this year, it's time, I think, for Lincoln to look in a different direction, which is why it's so.
You want to know who this USA team reminds me of?
Who?
Was it 2018 Oklahoma when they went to the Rose Bowl? Where
17.
they had that offense that was just ridiculous.
Yeah, 2017 Oklahoma, yes.
2017 Oklahoma, when they were just absolutely ridiculous on offense.
Wasn't that like a really power run heavy team though?
No,
that was Baker's Heisman year.
Yeah, they were slinging the ball around.
They were slinging the ball, but wasn't it like a?
I mean,
it was a combination of both.
Ryan and Joe Mixon, but I mean, Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine were catching the ball out of the backfield a lot too, which is.
I just think that team was much more power based than what we're going to see out of USC, and I could be completely wrong.
No, there was some. That was strong, huh?
Wasn't that 2016 with Samaje and Joe Mixon?
And 17. That was 17 Rose Bowl was against Georgia when we were up 31-17, 14 at the half, 17 at the half, and they just took their foot off the gas and was hoping the defense could keep Georgia continuously.
There was another running back that was going off. I forgot. It was another running back that was going off for you guys. It wasn't Joey Samaje. It was somebody else. I forgot what just the name.
It might be Kennedy. Oh, sorry, it was Trey Sermon. I think it was Trey Sermon in that game.
Because I think Trey Sermon came onto the scene in 2017, didn't he?
Yep.
You also had TJ Pledger too, but I don't think TJ Pledger was in that time in 2017.
Fanatics Steele answered it. It's both. The USC defense isn't very good. Now, this is the thing. They're opportunistic. They were generating turnovers, but they're not sound. Right? That's the difference. They'll make plays, but they weren't a sound defense, and they scored really quickly. So you had
Rodney Anderson. I'm sorry. It was Rodney Anderson is who you're talking about. It was Rodney. Yes. Sorry. I'm sorry, Todd.
No. Great point.
USC can't create turnovers against good teams. Hence why they lost to Utah.
Well, I think that's also indicative of good teams don't turn the ball over. Right? That's a double-edged sword.
But that's also the foundation of Grinch's defense.
No doubt.
It's been turnovers. It's always been turnovers, and that's what gets. I don't think that's helpful for them in even the Pac-12, especially once because the way Oregon's going to play, they'll probably play a lot more discipline. I think is Bo Pix still there? Is he coming back for one more year? So they've got themselves a veteran Bo Pix who had a good season last year. Granted, he had a really good year going through Washington. Michael Penix is talking about he's pushing for them to make the playoffs. There's talent out there in the Pac-12 that's going to be
see what happens there.
DJU at Oregon State, which I think they may actually win 10 games next year again. So there's a lot of components that his turnover-based defense may struggle if these teams play disciplined enough to where they didn't allow it.
Yeah. There's just one thing I'm asking for this year, and it's just I want Coach Prime to light it up against USC, and I want him to go into a shootout and win that game. That's all I want.
Yeah, no doubt. And now we need to talk about this spring game for OU because there's a lot we need to watch for. I talked about this today, and one of the things I'm most interested in along your offensive line is the center position, right? I'm super intrigued as to what's going to happen with that center position because Who are the guys battling it out for it right now, or is that pretty much a done job?
I think it's pretty much Andrew Rame's job, unless Joshua
Oof.
Bates just. I mean,
I think
I
Bates
will-
is battling him for it.
yeah, I will say this. Travis made a good point last night about how it wasn't good for BV, or no, maybe it was Jalen Ross, but it wasn't good for BV to come in last year and get rid of all these starters and these seniors in this first year. But this is going to be the season where starters are pushed out of their roles. So maybe a guy like Joshua Bates could. I think you would favor Andrew Rame just because he's been there a little bit longer and he's experienced in that role.
I think to start it off, yeah, you definitely have it, but I think there could be some competition there. That's an area on your offensive line that I've been watching for the previous 2 seasons, and it's just, there's
been a hole since we lost Creed.
You can tell it's not Creed. Yeah, you can tell it's not. And look, I'm not saying you have to be Creed Humphreys. Creed Humphreys is unbelievable, but
Hall of Fame center, yeah. How close he can be, yeah.
When I watched, yeah, that's true. F is for fanatics. It's it's just a televised practice, but there's still a lot to talk about, right? I mean,
yeah. I think it's more of the just want to see if they can execute on certain things, right?
Yeah, especially when you have a new
mentioned,
system.
Yeah.
If you can't execute on a televised practice, boy, do we have a problem.
Well, and it's an opportunity for us and the fans to see what these players look like in a strength and conditioning program for the first time in college. I mean, like, are we going to see just beefy PJ Adebayor? I think we've already seen it. Jackson Arnold's put on some weight. And I mean, so what's that going to look like with these players when they walk out to the field in Oklahoma uniform? What do they look like?
Yeah, and especially I just want to see the defense play with confidence, because when OU's defense played with confidence, they were at least playing with a ferocity, right? That whenever things would start going south and that confidence would waver, that's when things would start falling apart. So for me, if I'm going to talk about what I'm most looking for on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, if I'm going to give you one on each side, and then I'm going to go around and have everybody do the same. Tora, thank you for joining in this evening, man. I'm glad you could be here. Offensively, as much as I'm going to be watching that center position, I just think that the wide receiver position is intriguing to me. You lose the production, you lose the yards. There are some pieces there that I think are in for a big year. A Farouk, right? I think he's going to be moved all around. I've talked about this before. But I'm just going to be watching that position very closely. On defense, man, where to begin? Do you want to watch the inside linebackers, the cheetah, or the defensive line? My pick is going to be the interior of the defensive line, because if they're able to really play sound football, that's a good sign, because you have new faces, right? I don't need them to be disruptive like the old Clemson teams. I need them to display an understanding of what they're asked to do, because you have so many new faces in that from transferring. So Jay, talk to me about the Oklahoma spring game. What are you looking forward to? What are you excited to see? What are you worried about that you hope to see addressed?
So I'll go through each one of them for you. I know the one thing that majority of fans are excited to see is the first time watching Jackson Arnold on the field. And I'm going to assume PG is going to make mention of this, so I'm going to leave that to the side, because that's actually not something I'm really intrigued about, to be honest. I kind of have an idea in my mind of what he's going to look like. The ball's going to be on a rope. Think we'll be fine there. I'm truly intrigued to see, one, like you mentioned, wide receivers. I want to see who they're going to have out there starting. And then I want to see who's going to burn who in the secondary. Because once we see the younger players in the secondary, especially like a Josiah Wagner, I want to see him matched up with either Andrew Anthony or Jalil Farouk, and see how he plays in coverage against those big guys. If he can handle that size, because I've heard that he's been tearing it up in practice, and so I'm really intrigued to see how he plays. So that secondary versus wide receiver team, I'm really intrigued to see how those two go at it. Offensive line, I want to see how the cohesion looks like on the first and the second team. I want to see what that second team's going to look like, and if they're able to step up against the second team defensive line, I'm truly intrigued to see if they're ready for them, because we've got a lot of moving parts, a lot of young players on the line now, especially losing all the experience from Wanye Morris and Anton Harrison. You've got your bookend age guys gone. Guyton's going to be fine, but I'm ready to see what that other tackle looks like on the left, because I'm honestly not even sure who it's going to actually be, with Sexton being still out with that knee. It's going to be, they'll probably rotate some guys. So I'm really intrigued to see what that second. Most likely. I'm Caden Green, I think, has been the one taking all the first snaps as of late, but I want to see what that second offensive line is going to look like. And I think the last one is going to be this running back room. And I say that because we know Sawchuk's probably not going to run or run a little bit. We're definitely not going to see Barnes because he's out after he had the toe. He had surgery on his foot just for something that was lingering from high school that he finally got out of. We know what those two truly look like. We really don't need to see them. I want to see what those backups are going to look like. I want to see if Mega was going to be able to go at it. I haven't seen that he's not playing, but I haven't seen that he is. So I'm curious to see if he gets out there, see if Tyree Walker, what he looks like, as well as probably like Hicks. I want to see what Caleb Hicks looks like at the running back position. So intrigued about the secondary as well as the wide receivers battling each other, that second string offensive line, and then watching those running backs go.
Yeah, there's a lot you can dive into. PG, man, what are you thinking?
So I'm really interested to look at the quarterback position and see who's going to be QB2. And I know everybody kind of got on the video the other day and was like, no Davis Bevel. But I'm curious to see what Davis Bevel is going to look like at QB2 this year. Because I would assume last year he just was not comfortable in that role, in that new system. And so that's why you didn't see a lot of Davis Bevel passes. And then, when he did, and the combination of the wide receiver deal, it just was a bad turnout for him. So I'm curious to see if Davis Bevel can actually step up and play a more senior tenured role at that position. If for some reason we need somebody for like a quarter or a half or something like that. Obviously, I think if you're going to go to multiple games at that point, you might as well just go Jackson Arnold. But I think depending on the scenario, you can move in with Bevel or General Booty. So I'm curious to look and see how these quarterbacks look for QB2. Obviously, I think everybody's hopes is that Jackson Arnold outplays Dillon Gabriel. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think Dillon Gabriel is good enough to retain this job, at least for this year. And I think he's smart enough not to come back next year. So the offensive line's interesting. Obviously, Caden Green has taken a lot of snaps on the left side since Walter Rouse and Caleb Schaefer have been recovering from injuries or surgery. And I've actually talked to Caden Green. He said it was more playing time than he thought he was going to get this spring. So that's been really good. I don't think Caden Green's going to start, though, if Walter Rouse is healthy, just because I feel like they would like to get, Caden Green in the system for 4 years at the University of Oklahoma. And so I feel like they would redshirt him or use him only if needed. So the offensive line is interesting because next year you're going to lose, I think it's 4 or 5 offensive linemen, either to just graduating out of the program or they might go to the draft. So these younger guys, what are they able to show us in terms of a competitiveness to try to get onto the field and challenge some of these seniors or some of the juniors that might, declare after this year? That's what I'm curious to see. Wide receiver, I'm not too worried about it just because I know we have so much talent out there. Someone's going to pop off outside of Farouk. But in terms of the defensive side of the ball, linebacker, I think, is the most interesting spot because we've heard so much about Kanak, but then you've seen Kobe McKenzie, and James talked about it in his recruitment pictures next to Kenneth Murray, but then now you've seen pictures of Phil Picciotti next to
Phil Picciotti,
Kobe McKenzie, and he's freaking huge. So I'm like, I don't even know what to expect at the linebacker position, what this rotation is going to look like. I feel like we're going to have starters, but like everybody's, I think, going to get pretty equal minutes unless somebody just leaps and bounds better than somebody else because they all look like they're fit for the job. So that's probably the most intriguing part of the defense for me. Defensive line, you got a lot of the same guys on the interior that you had last year. So really, you just want to see improvement on their part. And then the edge, I think you're fine there with Rondell Bothroyd leaving that room. So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for in the spring. Linebackers, quarterback, offensive line.
Chance, before I pass it to you, there is one position, and I talked about this today in my preview for Oklahoma, that we don't talk enough about whenever we're talking about this. And I understand why, because Oklahoma got a guy that they're really high on, and that's the cheetah position. Because, yes, Desan McCullough is so talented, but guys, there is a lot asked of that cheetah position It is not an easy position to plug and play, and that's why guys like Brent Venables are so selective with who he throws in there. There's a lot to learn in that position. Now, while I have faith he can do it, we also need to understand it is a learning process. So if you see some plays and you're like, why did this happen? Remember, the kid went from playing a totally different position to basically being asked to be the hybrid in a hybrid style defense. Jance, talk to me about Oklahoma's spring game, man. What are you excited to see?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to their defense. You know, Jaron Connect had a lot of hype, especially since coming out of high school. So I think he's battling for the Mike position, right? Am I correct, fellas? Is he battling for Mike?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So
Right now he's Mike. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see especially what he can do in this system. I think their defensive line also. I mean, again, it's kind of the same guys. You know, you look at guys like Isaiah Coe, Jordan Kelly. You look at guys like Ethan Down, like a lot of those guys. But you got to look at the depth too. Maybe you can look at a Sears, maybe look at a Lacey. You got to look at the depth too, because again, you know, Oklahoma compared to what we saw in the last few years, they've gotten a little weaker. So yeah, that improvement, even though you're seeing the same dudes there, that is something that you definitely want to see. I'm intrigued to watch that offensive line battle, especially because you're losing some major pieces. Anton Harrison, especially that left tackle position, he's going to be gone. It's going to be interesting to see who's going to fill in that role. Maybe Caden Green. From what I've heard, you get a lot of people are high on him. Of course, you know, Anton Harrison, by the way, might go to the Bills. Just throwing that out there. But you know, it's going to be interesting to see what that left tackle spot, right tackle spot, and just some of that center play, that battle kind of takes place there. Of course, we all know Jackson Arnold. Is he going to take that step? Is he going to be a guy that can potentially in the future, you know, dethrone QB1, you know, a Gabriel? That is something that I think a lot of Oklahoma fans are interested in, because I think a lot of people at this point are kind of tired of Dillon Gabriel. Not to say that he's a bad quarterback, but you just know that there's just kind of levels. And especially if you want to try to reach that Big 12 national championship level, the upside player belongs to a Jackson Arnold compared to a Gabriel, who can only do so much for you. Not to mention that Gabriel doesn't have that, what Jalen Hurts had as far as weaponry, or what Baker Mayfield or Kyler Murray, like what those guys had as weapons. He doesn't really have that with his disposal. He has a lot of really young guys, a lot of young talented dudes, but guys that just doesn't even have the experience, or they're just not quite there yet as far as from a developmental area. Of course, again, really besides tight end, I actually think that's kind of, if we have to, look at some of your special groups, I think tight end with Stogner is good, but receiver wise, again, we'll see what happens with Ariel. We'll see what happens with Farouk. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens in those particular skill positions groups, especially working with Dillon Gabriel in year 2 and Jackson Arnold, as far as focusing on his upside.
Yeah, here's an interesting question Steele has. Jay, I'm interested in hearing your perspective, so I want to start with you on this. Steele says, and he's referring to Jonah Liu. Liu is our best defensive end at the end of the year, yet he moves inside. Is that a good sign for DE, or does that show how much help needed inside, or both?
Jonah fits better on the inside than on the defensive end.
I think it's a plus going to the inside. I think it's probably more so an not really an indictment, more so it shows that we have a lot of defensive end talent. You gotta remember, we brought in a bunch of portal guys too at the end from Bothroyd as well as Trace Ford, in which I heard Bothroyd was basically hyping up Trace Ford, talking about how monstrous he is on the edge. And so when you add those two with the Grimes and the PJ Adebayo and Ethan Downs, you've got a surplus of ends that can play on the defensive line and can make the magic happen. And then we've got to add.
You needed the help on the inside.
We need more help there, because you got Jacob Lacey, you have Lualu, and then you got Isaiah Coe. And I mean, besides that, it's all young players. That's what you need to beef up. So it makes more sense if you could put that veteran presence there on the defensive line that knows how to play it. Yeah, you take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Jed, you had something you're about to jump in there. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, you guys got Reggie Grimes too. I mean, shout out to Reggie Grimes, but edge talent is definitely one of those things where it's not. That's probably like the least concerning group to me, only because you got so much talent. But that inside focusing on that nose to that 1 to 3 technique position is somewhere where you need to kind of, figure out, try to grow a little bit more depth there. But your edge position, I really like that group.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree, Jance. I like the upside in that edge room, right? Some of the guys they got out of the portal, PJ Adebayor. I mean, that guy's going to be a dude. I think that much. He's going to be really fun to watch. That interior is going to be so big. Corey asks, is OU going to take the wide receiver from Texas? Hey, right now, crystal ball predictions going in Oklahoma's favor, and they could use the help at wide receiver. I know that Oklahoma fans like some of the talent they have in that wide receiver room, and I don't blame them. I like some of the talent they have in that wide receiver room.
I love it.
But I still think that if there's an area where they could add in more depth, it's that wide receiver room, right? I think it'd be a great addition for the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, talking about some other spring games, Jance, it is our time, my friend. The time is nigh, and we get to see what Alabama looks like, absent Bill O'Brien, absent Pete Golding. And guys, I don't know if y'all peeped Ole Miss's spring game. They couldn't stop a running back out the backfield to save their life, and I was sitting there watching like, damn, that's familiar. Damn, that looks familiar. And lo and behold, wouldn't you know? Guys, I'm pumped up. I am so pumped up. And there's a few areas that really has me fired up here. We can talk about the quarterback battle, and I think we'll have plenty of time to do so. I'm more interested in the offensive line. And I know that sounds crazy, but the offensive line, if they don't play at the level they need to, I don't think it matters who's at quarterback. Replacing Bryce Young is going to be a tall task. Yeah, you've got to replace Bryce. You've got to replace Latu. You've got to replace Jahmyr Gibbs. That offensive line has got to be a strong point. And then we can talk about what each guy at quarterback position allows for that offense to do. The good news, the Tommy Rees offense works with either Jalen Milroe or Ty Simpson, and that is a really good problem to have. Jance, man, I am so excited to hear from you. Before I pass it to you, I think I am going to piggyback off of something you said earlier. That defense, I can't wait to watch the inside linebacker room. Deontay Lawson's not playing, and call me crazy, I think it's a good thing for the room because there's such heavy competition right now. Him not being there allows more depth to develop. We know what Lawson's going to do. He's going to be a dude. And guys, Caleb Downs, I can't wait to see our first glimpse at Caleb Downs, who, by the way, is already listed as running with the ones at safety. He's already expected to be a starting safety. He hasn't been on campus 5 months. Jance, talk to me about this Alabama spring game. What are you looking forward to? What are you worried about that you hope they can get fixed up?
Well, I definitely think the most concerning thing to me, I think, is the secondary. I think Caleb Downs. They need depth. You lose 2 guys out of the transfer portal, especially the latest one you lost is Traquan Fagans. Tony Mitchell. Tony Mitchell is most likely not even going to play for the season. So that's 3 guys technically that you've lost. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Terrion Arnold looks like he's going to be playing with the ones along with Kool-Aid. It's going to be interesting to see, but yeah, I'm interested about the depth. Whether if it's a Hurley, whether if it's a Earl Little Jr., which by the way, just piggyback with what Arnold said that, hey, listen, man, Earl Little Jr. has improved the most out of all the guys, so it's going to be interesting to see what he can do there. But no, the secondary concerns me only because that was a weakness of this team last year was the secondary, preferably more at the free safety position because you look at a guy like DeMarco Hellums just kept biting on every single fake you could potentially imagine, super aggressive. And, again, even though for the most part, it looks like whether if it's maybe Christian Story or you may move a Malachi Moore.
Real excited for Christian Story.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what is there going to be a drop off? Is it going to be even worse with those guys compared to Hellums? Or is it going to be more of a, again, are we going to look more towards the brighter side of things? It's going to be interesting to see. Again, we run a lot of quarters. We're a quarter heavy team. But no, the secondary, is probably the group that I have to watch the most. That's the group that concerns me the most, especially when we look at week 2, where we're going against Texas with all those playmakers that they got over there. We got to get that cleaned up. I'm excited about. Yeah, I'm excited about this linebacking group. I cannot wait to see what Jahad Campbell looks like. I can't wait.
Yes.
This kid is a freak. I mean, we talked about early signings. That dude's a freak. I can't wait to see him play. Kendrick Blackshire has lost some more weight. He looks leaner. He looks faster. He's already a very, very, he already is he's one of the strongest players on the team already.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Year. Yeah, so for him to get faster, to get quicker, and for what I've heard is that he is a lot more patient compared to what his freshman year is. He's starting to wait for holes to develop. He's starting to communicate a lot more. He wants to take control and command of this defense, and that's honestly what I've heard from a lot of these guys. Sean Murphy's kind of the same way. He's added on some weight onto him. Man, I can't wait, man. I can't wait. Tresman Marshall, even though I don't think he's going to start, he's added he's been in that leadership positional role where he's really mentoring a lot of the younger guys. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, Deontay Lawson, obviously we're going to see him in fall camp. He's going to be battling, but no, I can't wait for that position. Defensive line also too, guys. Again, Tim Smith, what is he going to look like in year two? What is Otis going to look like in year two? Right, Otis has lost more weight. Can Justin Agbobi, can he recover from that nasty injury that he had, because he had a lot more momentum than he had last year? Now that he had suffered that injury, is that going to slow him down, and is that going to make more room for a lot more guys, maybe like a Burrows, maybe like a Latham that step up in? It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Obviously, a lot more people are excited for James Smith. What is James Smith going to look like? We've heard so much rumor that this kid is explosive. This kid is quick. This kid already has the technique down. He's already had the respect from the locker room. What is he going to look like? Because he's been in rotation with the ones at times. I'm excited to see what he can do. Obviously, the offensive line, big key area. What is Olis Allen? What is Caden Proctor? What are those guys going to look like? Because I heard it's been a battle. Right, they've been kind of rotating guys. Again, those guys have been playing some guard, some tackle, trying to battle with Elijah Prickett. But we'll see what happens there. Terrence Ferguson, what is he going to look like as far as that jump? Because he has a big opportunity to earn a starting job. And then I'm very curious to see, of course, what the quarterback battle looks like. Because now all of a sudden we're hearing rumor that Bama's they're interested in going after Tyler Van Dyke, which
negative Ghost Rider.
Yeah, If we watch, it's rumor, but if we watch this spring game and if we don't like what we're seeing, then maybe those rumors are becoming a little bit more true. But I'm interested to see what Jalen Milroe is, especially because he's the starting quarterback. He's running with the ones for this spring game. So that has to account for something, especially because a lot more people were hyped that Ty Simpson, a guy, even though, like Ty, you said it, both quarterbacks fit the system. The fact that he took in that massive, that step, and from the little footage that we've seen, I don't think anyone really wasn't expecting, Miller to not be the starter here. So I'm excited to see what that quarterback battle looks like. Obviously to see what our running backs look like, especially with guys like Justice Haynes, to see the explosiveness and the speed, what he can do. Because I think he has our opportunity to steal Jace McKellen's job. I'm gonna be honest. I think Jace McKellen could be RB2 going into the season. So this is a way more talented room, way more talented pool compared to last year. Because last year we already knew who were going to be the guys. There were a few position battles that were there, but we already knew what it was. This year, it's a lot more uncertainty, but I'm a lot more excited for this room compared to last year's room, because these kids that we all knew had way more upside than last year's room now have opportunities to battle for starting jobs or to battle for rotational positions. So, I'm excited going into this. I wish this was on ESPN primetime, but Colorado has that. We're going to be on SEC Live Plus, but I'm excited.
Keaton, this one hurt. That hurt. That really hurt. You did me dirty, and I thought we had something.
He's following Chris's footsteps.
I thought we had something. This is dastardly, downright disappointing.
He's doing to the chat. He's sabotaged the chat.
Yeah, he's turned them against me. Jay, talk to me about Alabama's spring game, man. What are you excited to see?
Two things. One, the defensive line. Will Anderson's gone. So I'm really curious to see who's going to step up and take over. Not just have a good game, but take over. Will was the secret weapon, as a young player coming in and dominating. And I'm really intrigued to see who steps up and takes over for him. Secondary wise, as you mentioned about Caleb Downs actually playing a lot with the ones. Granted, we talked about it. You guys are short on the safety side, but he's also super talented. So I'm wanting to see how much all over the field he's going to be to go with that also. And then I guess the last thing really is going to be, what is Tommy Reese's offense going to look like? Because that, of course, is where we're ready to see something different. We're tired of what we saw with the Bill O'Brien offenses back in the day. They were a little
too complex, too much.
There you go.
On.
Way too much going on. Too many hands flying around, too many jazz hands. And so we're going to see something probably a lot simpler but creative. And I'm pretty excited to see what he does with that wide receiver corp that you all have out there. So that's the three things that really jumped out to me for y'all's game coming up.
Yeah, PG. I don't know if you're. He's on a little sabbatical. We'll get back to him in a little bit. One of the things I saw someone ask, who's TVD Neo. That's Miami's quarterback. Big time freshman year. Really struggled last year. Rumors of him entering the transfer portal, but I believe personally that it was an NIL leverage, that they used Alabama to leverage more NIL for Miami. That's what I am believing. To be perfectly honest, I think I would like to roll out with the quarterback talent Alabama currently has. So we'll see that. But when I look at this, man, the defensive line, there are so many storylines we could talk about. Jaheim Otis, Chance, he's one of the first guys in a while that I've looked at for the Bama defensive line, and I'm like, you could be one of them, right? Like one of the guys that we talked about a few years ago that was like the typical Alabama defensive lineman that they had every year. Jaheim Otis is a guy I'm like, your tenacity, your ferocity, your work ethic, it's all there. I think pairing him, if James Smith continues to take those steps, reports of Burrow being very disruptive, and if a Boygby is healthy, that rotation along the defensive front could be really fun. Now, Jay, to your point about the edge position, it's my understanding that Chris Braswell nor Dallas Turner will play. So you're not going to see the number 1 or number 2 edge rusher. Fear not. You still have former 5-star Jeremiah Alexander, former 5-star Quay Russaw, former 5-star Yonze Pierre. Wait, is Yonze Pierre on campus yet, Chance? No, he's coming in the summer.
Yeah, he's coming in the summer.
Former 5-star, former 5-star, former 5-star, former 5-star, former 5-star. That's all I'm hearing on. So.
That position, man, that position is just so loaded. Keon Keeley was the number 2 player in the nation. He comes to campus over the summer. But there is no doubt, and I said this in the breakdown earlier, man, we don't need anybody to be Will Anderson. We need somebody to be Chris Braswell. We need somebody to be Jeremiah Alexander, Quay Russaw. Will did freaky stuff. We don't need one person to replicate all that, because I don't think anybody needs to be playing hero ball. Right? That's
Agreed.
how you get out of position. The talent is there. I just playing within yourselves. Now, PG is, he's still on mute. He's writing some things down. You good to go?
I'm good to go.
Oh, okay.
I'm selling my house, so I just had somebody call me and try to write. I had to write something down, so we're good.
Hey, I know you've been going through it with that house, man. What are you thinking for the Alabama spring game?
Yeah, I'm really excited and intrigued to see the quarterback position. I mean, I think I've said that every time we've talked about, the spring in Alabama. But, I mean, it's true because – but then again, I was listening to Greg McElroy in his show the other day, and he was like talking about how Alabama has – every time we've had these questions, they always come back with, a quarterback that's following up the last quarterback. So, I mean, maybe my questions will be answered. Maybe they just might not be answered in the time that I want them to be. It might be, within the first couple of games for Alabama. But really just figuring out what that's going to look like. I'm intrigued about the cornerback position because you guys have 2 cornerback portal entries. Now, I'm not sure if those were big losses for you guys, but that's an area I'm intrigued to see. Okay, now what does the depth look like for the Sooners, right?
You hit the nail on the
not
head.
for the Sooners, but for the Tide. Are they going to have issues? Yeah. Are they going to have issues going into the season? Which actually, funny enough, there's a part of me that really wants Bama to go out there and take Jaden Davis because Oklahoma fans hate him so much because he's 5'10", and I would love for him to go start out at Alabama so OU fans could be just proved completely wrong. But yeah, no, I'm curious to see what that depth's going to look like at cornerback position for you guys during the spring game.
Look, I think both of your takes there are beyond reasonable. Absolutely no doubt about it. I think questions will be answered during the course of the season. I don't think we're going to find it. I said this earlier. Positions probably aren't going to be won or lost during the spring game, but it'll be another drop in the bucket to help you win or lose that position. So you want a strong showing. James says, what position isn't loaded at Alabama? There's a few.
Cornerback.
Yeah, cornerback. Yeah.
Cornerback, there's just not the experience. Because they have Jaleel Hurley, former top guy, freshman. Des Ricks is on campus. He was number 22 in the nation after having reclassified. But young. There's just not experience. And so PG, to your point, man, a lot of people are saying these Bama transfers are no impact. I got to disagree with them. I have seen both of those guys. They're going to
go to Colorado and star out.
Both of those guys are guys that in a perfect world you keep because you know if someone goes down, and this is a physical game, you need depth. Jay, we talked about this the other day whenever Davis hit the portal, and you made the great point. And you're like, hey, there are guys who are probably going to push for his job anyways. And I told you, like, I don't think this is a bad thing for OU, but I also don't think it's a good thing because what happened last year, Davis got hurt and someone had to come in. We know football is a physical game. Injuries happen. You want depth you have faith in. And PG, to your point, Bama's got guys that are talented, but they're young. And you don't really want to throw a true freshman cornerback out there if you have to, right? No. Unless they're a dude. Maybe they are. But there's a long ways to go for the depth in that Bama secondary, 100%. Now, speaking about Colorado, I thought this would be a great place for us to end the evening on the Colorado spring game. Because, Daniel, I hear a lot of Texas fans are saying they're going to paint Tuscaloosa orange. Your thoughts? It's going to be a great game. I'm going to try and go. But yeah, it's going to be an exciting game. We're going to talk a lot more about it as things
from
kind of progress.
Non-biased fan in that situation, Texas is going to get curb stomped.
I don't know, man. I'm not that confident because Texas has a lot of weapons. Their wide receiver room is really good. Offensive line should be better. And the reason I think they should be better, anytime you have a young offensive line that grades higher in pass protection than they do run protection. So I'm not saying it's like unheard of. It's interesting because one of those is typically easier to do, and that's run protection. So you would think that the line would be able to improve on that. The Texas defense, they have some pieces that are really interesting. Anthony Hill, man, I'm super excited for him, but no doubt about it, I think it is going to be a great game. I think there are a lot of intriguing talking points, and we'll have a more thorough conversation on this after
Alabama wins by 21.
I love your enthusiasm.
No, that's not enthusiasm. They're going to win by 21.
I love your enthusiasm. I love it.
That's 100% enthusiasm.
I love it. I love it so much. But I'm not going to put out a score yet because I want to see what Alabama and Texas look like after this spring portal. For all I know, either team could lose a dude, right? Either team could have a guy that could be a real big piece to their team say, oh, I'm going to have to split time. I'm out. So I want to see after spring, after all that, and then we'll start talking. But Daniel, what I will say is this: that game is going to be fireworks, man. That's awesome for college football. No matter who wins, no matter who loses, that is great for college football. I can't wait. I wish OU Georgia wouldn't have gotten canceled. And I think a lot of people, we give they're still doing their bad habits. Yeah, they are, Kim, but they're improving. They're improving, and they have a lot of good coaches on that defensive side of the ball, like OU, right? It's one of those situations where OU had bad habits last year, but the coaches that are there give me faith that those bad habits will be fixed. I look at a Bo Davis. I look at a PK. I look at some of the guys they have in that Texas coaching staff, and I'm like, yeah, those are guys.
Yeah, their defense was a lot better later on the stretch compared to their offense. last year. So no, I think their defense could definitely. I mean, like I said, they lost some guys. Of course, there's going to be some pieces that obviously it's going to be a little hard to replicate. But no, I mean, dude, that offense with Anai Mitchell and Nair. I mean, we're going to be seeing. I mean, if Nair would have never torn his ACL, what he could have looked like for them last year, and then you got Xavier Worthy, and then it's just so many dudes there that man. With Sark, and if this offensive line continue to get better, man, it's going to be a dangerous team, man, for us. Very dangerous.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. But the Colorado spring game, I'm super intrigued about this, and I'm interested in hearing y'all's opinion, because one thing I've seen a lot of is people on social media saying, oh, look at that, they look really small. There's a reason Prime is in the portal the way Prime is in the portal, right? He understands that he inherited a 1-11 team. This is not a Ferrari ready to go. This is not a program that in the past 10 years has been able to recruit with the best of them. They're not, guys, if we did a college football tier list, which one day, actually before the season starts, I think that'd be a lot of fun to have all of us in here and do one of those tier lists and do a college football tier list and do a debate as to which teams go in. That'd be a lot of fun.
I'm down for it.
I'm down.
Great off-season content.
That'd be a lot of fun, right? They're not recruiting in B tier. They're not recruiting in C tier. They weren't recruiting in D tier. Colorado has a long ways to go, but that's why I'm so intrigued, because Prime is cognizant. He's cognizant of what they need, and he is ferocious in recruiting and in the transfer portal right now. And look, you got to respect the hustle that he's displaying right now. I do want people to temper their expectations of Colorado. I don't want people sitting there thinking whenever they go out there that this is supposed to be a team that looks like they're going to win a national championship next year, because inevitably we're going to see people online. You see Colorado, they look like they need to improve. Prime's not going to work. He hasn't been there 6 months. That's a team that needs a lot. They're going to do some work in the transfer portal. But, Jay, before I pass it to you, I do want to talk about the things that Colorado has that gives me faith. Not that they're going to get it together 100% this year, but that they're a team to watch. I like Shedeur Sanders at quarterback. I really do. I do, guys. And I can take it a step further. The wide receiver coach, Brett Bardlone, was the offensive coordinator at Jackson State. I think that continuity is huge. Yes, he won't be the offensive coordinator at Colorado, but he'll still be involved in the offense. Offensive coordinator, none other than Sean Lewis. And for my college football aficionados here, Sean Lewis in that Kent State offense was dangerous. I can see Shedeur Sanders working in that offense. They just went out and got Willie Gaines, who he has familiarity with from Jackson State, Jimmy Horn Jr. from FIU, Xavier Weaver from FIU. There's some serious wide receiver talent there now. And everybody always asks me, what about the offensive line? They've made some moves for the offensive line. I'm not saying it's a done deal, but they've made some moves. Jay, whenever you look at Colorado, what excites you, man? What are you thinking as they head into the first spring game with Coach Prime?
You said it best. He's tearing the foundation and the house back to the studs. They have 23 players that have hit the transfer portal since Saturday, 14 since Monday. So they started off with, they've got, almost, I put out a poll on my site, on my YouTube community, just for the fun of it, to see how many, and everybody was like, oh, it's going to be under 20 something transfers. No, we're already past that, way past it. And it makes sense because, like you said, he inherited a 1-11 team. Not to bash the Colorado fans too much on this one, but the team just was not very good. And so getting them in for the spring. You don't have to
feel bad, my man. You're not 1-11 by being good. You know what I mean? Like there's no bashing here. That's a fact.
Right. It's more of a lot of the fans have come to me like, hey man, we know we sucked. Don't keep reminding us. And like, you're right. I got you. Fair. So that's why I tried to be empathetic to their feelings. The bad guy here. Yeah, being that right. But no, it's one of those. It's he recognized that he's gone through spring practice and he's seeing what he has, and he's probably looking and saying, no, we're not the standard we need to be, so we're going to have to up the ante. So if you want to stay, you're going to have to work harder, or we're going to have to replace you. And he's starting to do that, which is a good thing. He's bringing in players that are from Jackson State that are comfortable with Shador to kind of make the transition easy for them. Sean Lewis as well as Bill O'Boyle are both getting former Kent State players that came from their offense that's comfortable with the way the offense runs. So on the offensive line as well as some skill spots, they're doing everything possible I would consider the right way to set themselves up for success. Now, the question is going to be, what's the execution going to look like once the actual season starts? So I'm very intrigued by their spring game. I want to see everything. I want to see just kind of how this offense is going to run in that altitude. I want to see if their strength and conditioning coach, Marcus Sims, has actually been able to make a dent in the conditioning of these players in preparation at playing at that level of altitude. It's going to be a different animal for a lot of those kids. I mean, they may be running in it now, but once you start really running those plays, woo, buddy, they're going to feel it. They're going to feel it. I've been there. I've done stuff physically in Colorado and made the mistake of doing it in Colorado. I recognize that, I probably shouldn't. I should have, eased myself into it. So I'm ready to see how they prepare themselves, how they execute on everything. And then from there, I'm ready to see what other players are going to bring in, because pulling this back to the studs, they got a lot of foundation to rebuild, and hopefully he can do enough to get them to a bowl game.
Yeah, hopefully. And David says he can recruit. He can recruit his tail off. And what gives Coach Prime even more legitimacy is when he walks in your living room, it's Sean Lewis with him. And these parents look at it and say, hey, you were a former head coach last year. When they walk in, it's Charles Kelly behind him. By the way, Charles Kelly was rated as the #1 recruiter per 24/7 Sports during the 2023 recruiting cycle. And, oh, yeah, by the way, go check out his history. That dude can recruit. Coach Prime moves the needle. He moves the needle. But it's what Coach Prime assembled outside of him that really got me fired up and got me to be a believer, not necessarily that Colorado is going to turn it all around in year one, but that they are going to be a program that if you're a college football fan, you've got to watch. PG, you've shared that belief with me. Talk to me about Colorado's spring game.
Yeah, so I'm intrigued to see kind of like what kind of product are they even going to put out there, because they just had 14 more guys enter the transfer portal in the spring cycle.
Yeah, very
14.
basic. Yeah.
That's like the amount some people get an entire year if, they have a head coach leave or whatever. Like, it's crazy to think they're going to lose 14 guys and still put out a product that is going to be competitive.
And that was my point earlier. Yeah.
But I mean, that's 14 more roster spots. And the thing is, they're not just taking one guy here and one guy there. They're taking multiple guys at the same schools and bringing them in. So they're at least trying to keep some form of chemistry there among some of these players. So that's why I said, these Alabama guys have hit the portal. Curious to see how many of those Colorado goes out there and grabs, because they've already got some of the guys on the team. But on the offense, I don't think there's really any worry, just because I feel like Shador Sanders, he's got his 2 wide receivers, he's got his tight end. They have a decent offensive line. Like, they should have enough chemistry by the fall to be able to go out there and put out a competitive product on the offense. The defense, I mean, you've got Jordan Dominic on the edge, who I think was probably one of their best pickups in the transfer portal, just from a pure production.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, Demoy Kennedy. But I mean, from a pure
Bowman.
production standpoint, I mean, nobody
True.
did it better than Jordan Dominic
True.
from the transfer portal. I mean, star wise, Kennedy, yeah, he's a little bit up there, but
No, that's a great point, because Dominic, he was a guy that was getting some production. Then he goes to Arkansas and breaks through with, I believe, 9.5 sacks.
Yeah.
So that's a
17
name to watch.
sacks total in his career, and I think like over 25 tackles for loss, if I remember correctly. And then they go out there and get Miles Slusher from the safety position, and they got talented linebackers. So I mean, I don't know what we're gonna get yet. So that's what I'm really curious to watch. I'm just curious, like, what are they going to look like? I mean, you could call out position battles all day long, but I think every position at Colorado is a toss-up. Everybody wants to see it. It's more so I just want to see what in the world they put out there. How do these players cope or play for Coach Prime? I'm just curious to see all of that. I'm curious to see the atmosphere around the fans at that game. I mean, this is going to be probably the most sold out that stadium's ever been. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen Colorado that full. So
No.
yeah, I mean, it's just going to be intriguing. But I'm curious about these 14 transfers. 14 transfers. How does that impact you? Are you going to be able to fill in 14 more spots before the college football season? Or are you going to try to just leave some of those as empty spots to roll in for the 2024 class? Because you'll know, hey, I can take in 7 or 8 more guys because I know that I have those scholarships available.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we're going to have to watch how they address the losses. And I think a lot of the losses are out of necessity because they took so many in the portal during that first portal window. Jance, talk to me about Colorado's spring game, man. What are you excited about? What are you looking forward to? What worries you?
Man, well, first of all, I want to see Travis Hunter and Carmonic McLean. I want to see how those guys do it. I mean, Travis is playing both sides of the ball. So it's gonna be fun to see what he can do there. I mean, from the practice footage, and the dude I think he already made Sports Center's top 10 based off of practice footage, making crazy catches. So it's gonna be fun to see what he can do. But yeah, Carmonic McLean, man. I mean, you're talking about one of the best 5-star cornerback. I think he's gonna start from day one. He's gonna get a great opportunity there. But yeah, like DeBoy Kennedy, Alabama product from Theodore. It's gonna be fun to see what he can do. He had his opportunities. Again, Bama's linebacking room was kind of stacked. Plus, we didn't really rotate a lot with our guys. So it's gonna be great to see, the opportunity he has there. I think he's gonna play alongside with Levante Bentley from Clemson, a guy that's also a very, very highly touted, talented player, but just couldn't really find those opportunities. Jordan Dominic, we all know what he can do. It's going to be interesting, man, because they have so many guys that transferred in, and again, they lost a lot of players, but they also gained a lot, and they could potentially gain some more. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, I'm interested to see what again, very similar, man. The product that's going to be put on the field. This is going to be on prime time television. Prime, like you got playoffs, you got NBA playoffs, you got hockey playoffs going on, you got baseball going on, you got boxing, you got all this crap going on. Alabama is taking a back seat to Colorado on primetime television. I mean, that goes to show you just the excitement that's going on with their program. I mean, their stadium is already sold out from what I heard. So it's gonna be fun to watch, but there are some concerns. I would just overall say that again, because they gained so many transfers, they now have to learn a completely different system. There may be players that may fit the scheme, there may be players that really don't fit the scheme. You may have again, very similar how they've gained a lot of transfer, but they also lost a lot of guys that they just gained from the transfer portal. They may end up losing after this spring cycle because they maybe were promised or promised to compete for positional battles, and it may have not been exactly what they want. So there's always some concern going on there. But Colorado is definitely one of the more intriguing teams only because of what prime time and just the amount of players and the NIL stuff that's going on there, and just the overall swagger that program already has now. That it's just a different feel and a different atmosphere. So I'm interested to see what happens. Definitely for their spring game.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of excitement for Colorado because, like Trojan points out, they have not been good at all. And now you have someone coming to Colorado who's bringing attention to the Buffaloes, who's bringing a sense of excitement that they haven't felt in quite some time. Now, to kind of close this out, we'll hit some comments and stuff, and people talking about Bear Alexander. Yeah, Bear Alexander, if he goes to USC, that's plug and play.
Yeah, what if he goes to Colorado?
Yeah, I mean, if he does, that'd be great for Colorado. Yeah. It just seems like writing's on the wall with USC.
Yeah.
And look, don't get me wrong. I think every team in the nation is going to hit up Bear Alexander. Not every team in the nation, but every team that has a need at defensive tackle that's willing to play the NIL game, they're going to hit him up because this dude is an impact player. He is. He's got the size. He's got the strength. He's someone you plug and play, and he'll make you a lot better. So that's something we got to watch. There were a lot of teams that they listed. Oklahoma was one of the teams battling for Bear Alexander. I think he's going to end up at USC. I don't know. I just think
makes sense.
Yeah. You'd love to have the best college. Maybe, yeah. 6-7 is a win for Colorado. That'd be interesting if they hit 6 and 7. That'd be
it's a bowl game.
Yeah, that'd be great for Colorado. I think, guys, we got to remember there is a lot they have to overcome. But when you see the prospects as excited as they are, that gives you credence for you to be excited or at least curious as to what Colorado will do. Outside of that, boys, I think that's about it. Y'all have any final thoughts you'd like to get out of the airwaves before we adjourn for this evening?
Yeah, make sure you watch some spring football this weekend. Just go check it out for your favorite team. Watch your competitors so you can bash them. Whatever you want to do, you should check out some spring ball this weekend, as
Hey,
well as the
everybody-
fight Garcia versus Davis.
Yeah,
That's
that's
going to
exactly
be
what I was
fantastic.
about to ask. Chat, who wins? Garcia or Davis? Who's going to win that boxing match? Because I know who I think is going to win the boxing match.
I had Tank.
I have Tank.
I had Tank winning in the 8th knockout.
Ooh,
I'll go against the grain. I'm gonna do a round 10 knockout by Garcia.
You know what's funny? I want him to win because he's just a more exciting prospect.
He's so
to watch.
entertaining, man. He's
So
so
fun.
entertaining. He's
But
fun.
Like I
miss
said
that.
earlier, the only thing that worries me, I think I'm in the same boat as you, Jay. If you ask me who would I rather see win, I just think it'd be super interesting for boxing. If Ryan Garcia shakes it up, goes through, gets tanked, like you set up such an interesting storyline that I think is great for boxing as a sport. But I think Davis is going to win. And the only thing that worries me is we've seen a pattern with Ryan Garcia where he leaves himself open to the counter hook.
Yeah.
And Davis's counter hook is it'll send you to the
That
shadow realm.
uppercut.
That uppercut,
man.
he is a great counter puncher. Right. And it's going to
Mhm.
be a lot of fun. Then there's the UFC fights. It's UFC fight night. Don't sleep. Don't sleep. It's going to be a banger. Someone's getting knocked out in UFC as well.
Who's
I'm
fighting?
not saying it's Curtis and Pavlovich.
Oh, Blades. Okay. Okay. That could be a number one contender. Well, after Stipe Miocic gets his shot, but yeah, that could be. A number one
Yes.
contender
No,
shot.
this is a big fight. This is a big setup. Big setup. Straight to the shadow realm. Yeah. Like Alex Pereira waking up. I do not envy any of them. Tank has too much punching power. That's my thought exactly, man. That's my thought exactly. Is that Tank is just too experienced.
I just want
power.
No, go ahead.
No. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I said I only want Garcia to win because if Garcia wins, then it's just going to be it opens up the pool now to where Shakur Stevenson starts to step up, and now he gets his opportunity. Devin Haney, after he fights whoever wins that fight between Lomachenko and him, like Garcia's already expressed, he wants that if he beats Tank, he wants that 135 title fight, and then he's going to move up to 140, and that opens up. I mean, Tank has already expressed he just doesn't care. He doesn't really care about belts. He kind of just wants to just get some of the big fights. But we all know how Mayweather promotions are with their fighters. They're very, very picky. They believe Tank is he is the A side of boxing. But that 135 to 140 division needs to be opened up a little bit more often because that has the most exciting prospects. And Garcia winning would completely open up both those divisions up to big fights compared to Tank winning. That's why I kind of want Garcia to win, but I don't know. We'll see.
The problem is I could do just a straight up boxing podcast or a straight up UFC.
Oh no, we
podcast.
can. We might have to do that. We might have to have an episode one day.
I have told Jay before I am very close to starting a separate channel just for combat sports, boxing, UFC. Yeah. Because if I'm not watching football, I'm watching UFC, I'm watching boxing. It's becoming a problem. A real serious problem. But hey, guys like you guys enable my problems. Thank you. I hope everybody has friends who are enablers. But guys, y'all already know the drill. I want y'all to go down the line. Let everybody know where they can find all your great content. Anything you want to tell the people that you have coming up that they need to be on the lookout for. Kind of satiate their interests. Ooh, superfluous syntax tonight. Okay, Jay, I'll start with you.
Oh yeah, that is kind of intriguing there. Hey, Jay Smith, Unfair Sports. Search for me on YouTube. Find me on Twitter, as well as whatever podcasts are downloaded and listened to. Got a little series I'm thinking about doing around the Sooners while we're kind of hanging out during the quiet period. So just keep your eyes out in June for some stuff to come down the line.
That should be fun. That should be a lot of fun. PG, what are you thinking about, bro?
Oh shoot.
Oh.
Someone's mentioning it, so I'll whip them out.
Yeah, he believes in the heart of the cards. My man.
No, yeah, y'all can find me on YouTube, the PG Show, all one word, Apple, Google, or Spotify as well. And then y'all can get over on Twitter and argue with me over there as well at the PG Show _.
Probably not going to win the argument, but you can try and argue with him. Go on right ahead. Jance, where can they find all your content? What do the people have to look forward to?
Yeah, so you guys once again find me at YouTube Gent Sports. I have a video that I actually have to upload, just talking about a few scouts that I'm doing for the Bills as far as their videos. I got a Darnell Washington video that should be up like about 10-15 minutes. And then also find me on Twitter, Jan716. Best way to contact me there. I will be on another stream pretty soon. I'll be on Shop the Tommy from Mafia Sports. I'll be on there, and we'll be doing a live mock draft. So if you guys want to stay tuned for that, you guys can check us out over there.
Oh, that's going to be fun. I tried doing one mock draft once. And then it hurt my heart.
Yeah. And this time, I forgot, because last week we did one, but this week we'll let the fans, he'll let his subscribers, his fans, they'll do the mock for him. So we'll
that's
criticize
fun.
their picks. Last week I got destroyed. I got criticized all over the damn place. So that'll be fun to just do the criticizing for once. So
that's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, that's something people need to use. Oh. We got a Blue Eyes duelist in the house. PG,
I'm Blackwing all the way. They're my favorite. It's my favorite archetype. I love them so much. So
if it's not Dark Magician, I'm not interested. And with that, we're out. We'll see y'all on Monday, 5 o'clock. Might stream